Which brings us to the fifth deception in the New Age movement. Accept, but never, ever resist. Never resist. Resistance is futile. And we have the Borg here in the presence of, in the form of Bush and Cheney. You know, you will be assimilated. Don't bother to resist. You will be part of the dark New World Order. And don't worry, I'll even it out later with Obama as a Borg. So that's one of the first parts of this deception. This is going to be a central focus in the presentation, the concept of never resist, just accept. The other part of this, another part of this deception is the abuse, the incorrect usage of meditation and yoga. The New Age movement has been twisting these spiritual practices into means to take people's minds off the fact that they have been enslaved and make it easier for them to just accept the current condition of the world as their lot in life. It just cannot be changed. It has to be accepted. Don't react to anything. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. Never react. Just observe. Now, observation is key. It's critical. We have to watch what is happening. We have to watch ourselves. And they say never react. Now, what this translates to in most people's minds who hear this, because, you know, they're just hearing, don't ever react to anything. All right? In most people's minds who are part of the New Age religion, this means to them, don't take any action in the world. That action is ultimately meaningless. It's just about changing yourself within, but then never actually interacting with the outside world to create change outside. Never take any action to try to change the things that are wrong with the world. What they're really saying when they say don't react is they're saying don't act. Don't take any action. The suppression of the sacred masculine part of the consciousness, our actions. The next part of this deception is what you resist persists. Another New Age tenet that sounds good seemingly, but again, it takes us away from actually utilizing our mind and our emotions to take action in the world, which actually is what wisdom is about. Developing true wisdom is about taking action in the world. Wisdom is what you do with what you know. So, you know, the New Age deceivers say, don't resist evil. Just let it run rampant and destroy everything that is good. You know, freedom is irrelevant. Your culture will adapt to service us. Surrender all your weapons. Resistance is futile, says Borg Obama. No confrontation, the New Agers will tell us. There's never a time for confrontation, and there's certainly never, ever, ever a time to use physical force. Never a time to use physical force. Bullshit. Okay? And this is something we need to come to terms with and own and understand. We can't just let ourselves be walked on and roll over to psychopaths. At some point, there is a time that comes when it is necessary to use physical force, and we'll get into that. I want to talk about the idea of acceptance versus resistance, or changing something first, okay? And I think someone who eloquently expressed wisdom regarding this was Reinhold Niebuhr. And he said in the Prayer of Serenity, which is very misquoted, and you'll hear the difference when I read the original of this prayer here. He said, God, grant me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed. See, the word I is not in this version. Okay? The courage to change the things which should be changed. That's not in the version that people hear either. But that's the original. Okay? And the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Meaning, there are some things that cannot be changed. They are inherent. They are objective. They exist in nature. They weren't created by man. And man cannot change them. Therefore, those are the things that should be accepted. And that is natural law. That is God's law. Okay? And then there are things which should be changed because they are not right. They are bad. They are bad for our development. They are bad for our growth. We need to develop the wisdom to know which things cannot be changed and which things we should and must change. So I like this version. Accept what you can't change and change what you can accept. Those are words of wisdom. We should be really heeding those words in our lives. The right usage of meditation and yoga, the difference between use and abuse. Meditation's correct usage is for balancing the brain when it has become chronically left brain dominant. It actually means to take to the middle. That's what the word meditation means, to bring to the middle. We should be using it if we're in a state of chronic left brain dominance. If we overuse it when we're already in a state of balance, we're going to create right brain hemispherical indominance, and we're going to become practitioners of slave thing and just roll over. It's supposed to bring it to balance. We could use contemplation to keep it there, to keep it in that balanced state, the mind. Yoga's proper usage is to help us to discover what our true work actually is in the world, to create real change. It is our dharma. It helps us to find our dharma. Okay? It is there to motivate us to do that work, to get into the modality of action, the masculine aspect of consciousness. That's what yoga is for. Not to relieve your stress so you can put up with more crap at your job. That's not what yoga is for. It's not what real yoga is for. It's also not just about losing weight and trimming up your body. Of course, the physical vehicle is very important. But people are abusing the yogic system. They're not using it for the right reasons. What's being left out of the equation always, in the New Age movement, is the sacred masculine component of the actions which we perform with our body. They'll talk about thoughts and emotions, but very rarely you hear them telling people that they actually have to get motivated and take action in the world with the body. This is very much, pushed to the back burner in the New Age movement. And until these three things are operating in total balance, all together, with no opposition or internal contradiction between these three expressions of consciousness, we're not conscious. We're in a state of unconsciousness, and therefore apt to be manipulated and enslaved. See, the difference between the New Age precept of that which you resist persists, and my variant of it, see if you can wrap your mind around this. That which manifests as a result of what we are wrongly resisting is that which will persist in the world. We are wrongly resisting truth as a society, as a species. And therefore, we're going to get run down by the train of that which cannot be changed. Natural law. The natural law express is going to run us over because we think we're going to stand there with our arm outstretched, refusing to know the truth and understand objective reality and objective right and wrong. We're going to put our hand out and we're going to stop that force of creation that the universe has made. And we're going to stand against it. Okay? We're going to get run down, like getting run down in the tracks by a locomotive, if that's our attitude. That's what resistance really is. So here's a hint. Don't be this guy. Okay? Accept natural law, the laws of creation. Okay? And stop resisting truth. And help to get other people into that mode of consciousness. See, there's two pillars to enlightenment that provide stability and balance. And there can't be balance without each one of these. Okay? The first one is the sacred feminine principle, which I've talked extensively about in my work. This is the non-aggression principle. Do not initiate violence to your other fellow beings. That's it. Your violence should never be initiated. It is coercive force. It is using coercion. And it is stealing someone else's free will to make them bend their will to yours. That's violence. Okay? Don't engage in that. That's the non-aggression principle. It's very simple. That's the sacred feminine. We add the sacred masculine, which is the principle of self-defense. This is what the New Age movement completely leaves out, and often what the freedom movement leaves out. Without the self-defense principle, we are not ever going to give any teeth or backing or defense to the sacred feminine principle. The goddess principle cannot stand without the sacred masculine principle. Without that pillar being put in conjunction with the sacred feminine, neither of them can stand. Okay? So we have to understand the difference between force and violence. They are not the same thing and should not be used interchangeably. This is the obfuscation of the definition of words, when people want you to believe that the word force is the same thing as violence, and it is not. Force is the capacity to do work or cause physical change, to create change. It is energy, it is strength, it is active power. We all use it to perform the actions that we do on a daily basis. Action which is in harmony with morality and natural law because it does not violate others' rights. Okay? All ability to create any change in the world is a manifestation of force. Use the force. Don't use violence. Okay? Force is action which we possess the right to take. And this includes defense against violence. When our rights are being violated, we have the inherent right, even though many people have convinced us that we do not, to use defensive force against that aggression against our natural rights. Violence, on the other hand, one never has a right to take. It is always based in wrongdoing. Violence is the immoral use of physical power to coerce, compel, or restrain. It is the initiation of coercive action, which is in opposition to morality and natural law because it involves the violation of others' rights. Violence is action which we never possess the right to take. And the difference between the two is who started it. You know, you hear teachers always telling students, hey, you got in a fight, it doesn't matter who started it. That's all that matters when it comes to this dynamic. Who started it? If you started it, you engaged the violence. If I get mugged out on the street, I'm walking down the street peacefully and somebody pulls out a switchblade knife and says, give me your wallet or I'm going to cut you, that's violence. They started it when there was no problem present. If I pulled out a 9mm handgun and defended myself, that's not violence. I don't care who thinks that's violence, you're wrong. That would be the defensive use of force, and you need to know the difference between the two terms. We have these different groupings in society that, all say they want something good, but they're not putting these principles together. They're not wedding them in the divine union between sacred masculine and sacred feminine. Two of the groups I just want to point out, I call it the My Freedom movement. They're real concerned about the loss of freedom for them, okay? A lot of activists are like this, Halfway understanding about these principles will not get it done. It won't get us to true freedom. The My Freedom movement often leaves out the sacred feminine principles of non-aggression and compassion toward others. While conversely, the New Age movement leaves out the sacred masculine principles of standing up for one's inherent rights and our inherent right to defend ourselves against violence. Okay, when we are to defend ourselves with force when we are accosted with violence. New Age movement leaves that sacred masculine tenet out. A totalitarian police state is coming down on us, and we all know this. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. All right? And the occult controllers who are bringing this system forward, who are manipulating this system to come forward, are trying to propagate a religion that will make it come on faster by pushing people into deeper right brain imbalance so that they will never stand up for their natural rights. And that religion is the New Age movement. It is that religion. And this is invented by dark occultists. And when I was involved in Satanism and the dark occult, they told me, wait till you see the things we are going to be putting out through the New Age movement to get these people to stand down. I was told that by Satanists. And they did it. Everything they told me came true. They said, wait till you see the concepts we'll be putting out through books, videos, documentaries, etc. And we will be behind that. And whether they got useful shills to propagate it, or whether those people are working directly with these occultists to deceive people directly, I don't know. It could be a little bit of both. But I do know dark occultists are behind the New Age movement. Let's cut through the BS when it comes to this deception of standing down, of accepting, and never rebelling. The real reason, as uncomfortable as this will be for many people to accept, that most people, including New Agers, do not want to speak out against government and authority is because deep down inside, they're cowards. They're cowards who lack the courage and conviction to stand up to a bully. And that's the lesson here. This is the lesson, ladies and gentlemen. The lesson here on earth is stop letting the bully have his way. Stop letting him continue to usurp your natural rights, which are not his to take. We have to exercise the sacred masculine dynamic of apophysis in conjunction with the sacred feminine dynamic of true care. And this is done by saying no. Developing the care enough to work up the courage to say no. This is the lost word, as it is known in the mystery traditions, particularly the esoteric tradition of true Freemasonry. This is the lost word of Freemasonry, ladies and gentlemen. I've just revealed it to you. Something that most Freemasons never know in their lives, because they don't receive the true teachings in the modern lodge system. The lost word is no. Learn it well. Fall in love with it before it has to come to the last word. And this is what I'm trying to avoid. I've told people repeatedly, over and over and over, all the work that I have done is to avert the negative and painful scenario that may need to occur if not enough of us stand up and say no. Because then it will come to something that is appalling. Okay? And I'm trying to avert that. I don't want that scenario. I want peace to reign on the earth. Okay? I want people to give up the violence ideology that they're currently living by. But you know what? I will not go quietly either. Everybody who's been listening to my show knows how much of a gun supporter I am. For defensive purposes. To back with teeth our natural law right to defend ourselves from violence. And no one will take that right from me. You might take it from my corpse, but you won't take it from my living body. Ladies and gentlemen, what we're seeing on that screen is a peaceful man. A peace-filled human being. I live the non-aggression principle in every moment in my life. I know what my rights are. I know what my rights are not. I know that which I own and that which I do not own, and I live according to those principles. But I'm not going to let some psychopath or some mind-controlled slaves of some psychopaths tell me they own my natural rights and they're coming to take my freedom. Not without consequence. Not without consequence. There's free will. But there's not free will without consequence. So, again, I won't go quietly into the night. That's the decision I will make. And that is my right to do so. And you know what? This principle has been shown through symbolism and allegory in many of the ancient mystery traditions. In the Aztec tradition, they had the concept of Quetzalcoatl. The Quetzal bird, he is covered with the feathers. Quetzalcoatl was called the feathered serpent. See, this is the dynamic of the above and the below combined. Spirit and matter existing as one, coming together in the divine union. The sacred feminine is the feathers of the Quetzal bird that flies aloft in the air, representing higher consciousness and the sacred feminine principles of non-aggression. While the serpent, the fangs and venomous serpent, okay, the caudal, right, represents the sacred masculine principle of self-defense. Striking if your natural law rights are violated repeatedly, and the one who is doing it will not take no for an answer. That dynamic is kept. That is the survival instinct. That is the sacred masculine instinct. That is just as important as the sacred feminine higher consciousness of do no harm. Do not aggress with violence against your fellow beings. And in the Bolivian tradition, here we have at Tiwanaku, the sun gate at Tiwanaku, Bolivia, the image of Viracocha, the sun god. And he's holding the two pillars of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine dynamics. He is the one who bridges the two. He bridges those two principles and creates stability. And he is holding the serpent pillars. Okay? And he is enlightened as a result of doing so. Those are the two pillars of enlightenment. That's why it's the sun gate. It is the keystone on the sun gate, this sacred union. The sacred masculine is being left out as much as the sacred feminine is, unfortunately. This is my favorite depiction in any tradition of a yin-yang symbol. It comes from the Gnostic tradition. The serpent and the dove. This is the roots of esoteric Christianity. And it's a beautiful concept. You know, it's very similar to the Quetzalcoatl principle, just in a slightly different symbolic form. You have the bird, the dove, the Holy Spirit, the sacred feminine, non-aggression, care, compassion. But it is combined and unified. That's the above. But it goes around, it combines and unifies and does a sacred dance, a union with the sacred masculine, the serpent. Okay, which represents the sacred masculine principle of the inherent right to defend ourselves. In the Hermetic tradition, very ancient Kemetic sciences, and even predating the land of Kemet, they had a concept known as the stellar man, the stellar being, the being of the stars. Okay, but the stellar man and woman, it's just a term, a label, okay? The stellar being, let's say, has their head in the stars, but their feet anchored firmly on the earth. Be here now. Understand what's really taking place in the real world, which is the physical domain, but it is also the expression of the spiritual domain. And act here on the earth. Use the sacred masculine principle of action in the right capacity to create positive change. Have your head in the stars. Understand higher consciousness. But do your work here on the earth. Have your feet on the ground.